Australia's Future Fund sits on a mountain of cash, $73 billion under management in its main fund and another $17 billion in three others. It was set up by the Howard government in 2006 to cover the Commonwealth's huge public service superannuation bill. It's run by a board of guardians, and for a year the government's been looking to replace the retiring chair. So it engaged the outgoing head of the Stock Exchange, David Gonski, to recommend a successor. And when he interviewed the Future Fund guardians, the majority said the best man for the job was fellow board member and former Treasurer Peter Costello. But in a shock move, the government appointed David Gonski. Speaking exclusively to 7:30, Peter Costello joined me a short time ago from Melbourne.
Thanks very much, Chris.
The government says that it picked the best man to run the board of the Future Fund, and that's not you. It's a fair call, isn't it?
The government had 4 years to make an appointment to this position. When it didn't make it the first time David Murray was coming to the end of his term, it extended it 12 months and it gave itself the opportunity to put somebody in. I think, Chris, that the process has been a schmozzle. The government should have appointed somebody 12 months ago onto the board, given them time to adjust. It would have been ideal as a chairman. I think the process under which the government commissioned a report and leaked it to a selected journalist has created problems for the governance of the fund. And I'm interested in the fund and its international reputation. That's what I want to see protected throughout all of this.
So do you actually think that the appointment of David Gonski harms this board's reputation and this fund's reputation?
I think the way in which this was handled has harmed the reputation of the Future Fund. The government can appoint whoever it likes, and it could have done that, as I said, 12 months ago or at any time in between. Well, what the government chose to do is it chose to commission David Gonski to do a report and to give a name to the government. We now find out that after Mr Gonski interviewed all of the board members and gave that name, the government rejected his name and appointed him. Now, my position is this. First of all, the government should not have leaked to a selected journalist that report and should now make that public and should make it available to the board. Secondly, Mr Gonski, having taken the role of being the person to get the confidence of each individual board member and report back to the government, I would have thought disqualified him from having his own name put forward. And I think that would have been good corporate practice. Is
this not just sour grapes because it was your name that was put forward as a recommendation and you didn't get the job?
No, in fact, I didn't even know till today that it was my name that was put forward, to be frank.
And isn't Mr Gonski unimpeachable as a decision?
To be frank, Chris, I still don't know that my name was put forward because the board has never been given this report and the board has never received an explanation from the government. Now, I know Mr Gonski. I've known him for many, many years. I appointed Mr Gonski to boards and inquiries. So I have no problem with Mr Gonski. But I ask you this question. If the government wanted Mr Gonski, why didn't they appoint him 12 months ago? And secondly, why did they ask him to get the confidence of the board and then ignore his recommendation? And thirdly, having got the confidence of the board, don't you think he should have ruled himself out as a candidate?
And if you feel so strongly about this, should you resign from the board?
No, because the Future Fund was something that I conceived, I legislated it, and I put every dollar of capital into it. Every dollar. No other treasurer, no finance minister, nobody has put a dollar of capital into this fund except for me. It is one of the few sovereign wealth funds held by Western governments around the world. It is probably the most respected. I want to make sure that its reputation continues. That's why I was appointed to the board, and I want to make sure that it continues into the future.
Are you suggesting that his position is now untenable on this board, that he would not have the confidence of the board?
I'm suggesting that the process, and I think every editorial in the country has said this, that the process was severely compromised. I have said that I regard him highly, but the point I'm really making here is that it's very important for this sovereign wealth fund, and it's Australia's sovereign wealth fund, that it be internationally respected. And I want to see that it is. The other point I'd make is that there was some foolish and juvenile attacks from Labor Party senators in particular on me today.
You're talking about Stephen Conroy saying, I'd rather put my money under the control of David Gonski any day of the week ahead of Peter Costello.
Foolish and juvenile. And, you know, there's certain things that I'll cop in public life, but I won't cop that. I'd remind Stephen Conroy of this. If I hadn't paid off Australia's debt and accumulated $60 billion in surpluses, there would be no future fund. This future fund invests the surpluses that I delivered as Treasurer. And for a man like Mr Conroy, his last outing was set-top boxes and the NBN, to be talking about a financial accountability is a bit rich.
Speaking of finances, it's much in vogue at the moment to talk about economic management. Are you disappointed that the Coalition is blocking a cut to the company tax rate?
Well, look, Chris, I'm in favour of lower company taxes. I cut the company tax rate from 36 cents to 30 cents. So I believe we should continue to cut taxes. But if the price of cutting taxes is to impose a carbon tax, in other words, to impose a huge, mammoth new tax of which you give back a very small amount, frankly, I'd rather they do nothing.
But it's true, isn't it, that in and of itself, cutting the company tax rate is a good thing because it will increase productivity, that there'll be more money in the economy, it'll create jobs.
It is a good thing. Yes, exactly right.
And a classic Liberal position would be not to stand in the way of that.
No, but if it is outweighed, Chris, by a much greater tax, if here's a little tax which is outweighed by this mammoth tax, my friend, I'd take nothing. I'd take nothing.
The Coalition does trade on your economic record. Can you think of anyone in the current front bench who ain't made any serious financial decisions in the last Coalition government?
Well, Joe Hockey was an assistant to me, obviously, as Minister for Financial Services. I think Matthias Cormann has been a great find, and I think some of the younger people, such as Tony Smith, Kelly O'Dwyer, Jamie Briggs, are very, very good on economic policy.
What about decisions like the paid parental leave scheme that Tony Abbott's proposing? Is that risking your economic record?
Well, Chris, you know, I didn't come on here to talk about paid parental leave. I think my views are well known on that.
You think it's a bad idea?
Well, I've written on it. You know, I've written on it. It's all out there, Chris. You know, you've read it, obviously. I'm not against parental leave, but you know the criticisms that I've made on it. I didn't come on here to talk about that. I don't resile from it. But you know, I accept the fact that as times change, people change policies. The reason I came on here was to talk about something that's lasted, and it's the Future Fund, and I don't want to see it disappear.
All right, finally, do you ever look back and think that you should have stayed in federal politics, that you could have won the 2010 election?
Oh, look, you're always looking with interest at what's going on in Canberra, always. But I'll tell you this, I don't miss going to Canberra for a moment, Chris. Sorry to say that. I might miss your company, but I don't miss the company of people in the big house on the hill. And when you see the kind of process that's been going on over recent days in relation to this prime sovereign wealth fund, you just say to yourself, my goodness, standards are slipping.
Well, Peter Costello, I am astounded to hear that you miss my company, but thank you.